Okay, so what if your phone had a superpower? Seriously, what if it could see things that you just can't? Like an ancient sign that points directly to where the fish are hiding. Well, today we're going to dive into an AI that does exactly that. For centuries, the absolute best fishermen, they've known to watch the sky, not just the water. See, a flock of diving birds, that's pretty much a perfect sign that bait fish are right at the surface. And you know what that means? Bigger fish are just below. But here's the thing. The human eye, it has its limits, right? We get tired, we get distracted, and trying to spot that kind of action from way out on the water, it's nearly impossible. So that just begs the question, doesn't it? What if you could automate that? What if your phone could just sit there, staring at the horizon for hours on end with perfect focus, and then just tell you exactly where to go? That's the incredible idea we're going to get into. Okay, so it all starts with solving what we can basically call the fisherman's dilemma. And that is, how do you turn a day that's mostly just hopeful guesswork into a precise, tactical operation out on the water? And here's the core difference, right? For us, for human eyes, spotting birds relies on a mix of luck and experience. But for the AI, it's all about tireless, constant observation. It literally never blinks. It automates your situational awareness. And get this, it dramatically shortens what the creators call the see spot fish loop. Think about that, turning hours of searching into just minutes of action. So the goal is super clear, but actually doing it, wow, that's incredibly complex. I mean, teaching a phone to see a tiny little distant bird against a vast moving ocean, that is a monumental challenge in computer vision. And that's the real question here, isn't it? We're not talking about spotting a bird in your backyard. No way. We're talking about a tiny speck hundreds of meters away, moving all over the place against waves and sun glare. Think about how hard that is. Let's just put the scale of this problem into perspective. At over 200 meters away, a common turn might only be, 10 to 30 pixels on your phone screen? A bigger bird, like a herring gull, maybe 50 pixels? That is an incredibly small amount of data for an AI to look at and say, yep, that's a bird, and not just, a bit of sea foam or something. So the crucial takeaway here is that a standard off-the-shelf AI model just wasn't going to cut it. The engineers use this really powerful model called YOLO V8, but, and this is the key part, they customized it with something called a small object head. The easiest way to think about this is like a purpose-built digital magnifying glass. It lets the AI really zoom in and focus its attention on those high-res details it needs to find those tiny, tiny specks. But okay, just detecting a bird isn't really the goal, is it? A single gull just flying by. That's not what fishermen are looking for. The system has to move beyond just seeing an object to actually understanding its behavior. And the key behavior they're hunting for is what's called a feeding frenzy. Now, this isn't just one bird diving one time. Now, it's a sustained flock of birds with multiple dives happening over and over. That's the unmistakable signal that there's a full-on buffet going on just under the surface. So how in the world does the AI recognize this? Well, it basically acts like a detective, looking for a very specific set of clues. First up, clustering. Is it a flock or just a lone bird? Then it analyzes motion. Is a bird dropping like a rock towards the water? It even tracks the size of the bird on the screen, because if its little bounding box suddenly gets bigger, that's a huge sign it's diving right towards you. And finally, it counts the dive frequency. It's the combination of all these things that signals a true feeding event. All right, so we've got an AI that can find tiny birds and even figure out what they're up to. Awesome, but the open ocean is an incredibly noisy place, visually speaking. So to solve this problem, the designers turned to a really classic piece of marine tech for inspiration. And the core idea is brilliant. They decided to make the AI work just like a marine radar. Think about it. A radar doesn't show you everything. Its whole job is to filter out the noise, the clutter from waves and bad weather, to show you the one signal that actually matters, the target. This AI does the exact same thing, but it's doing it with pixels instead of radio waves. And here's how this whole pipeline works right on your phone. It all starts with the raw video frame from your camera. The AI detects potential birds. Then a tracker links them together across multiple frames to make sure they're real. Next, the radar logic filters out all the false alarms, and only after all of that, when the detections are grouped into a confirmed flock, does a clean, actionable alert get sent to you. And this whole radar analogy, It goes even deeper. You actually get echo trails on the screen to see where a flock has been, which is so cool. The clutter rejection is specifically trained to ignore stuff like sun glare and whitecaps. There's even Doppler coloring, which colors the flocks based on if they're moving towards you or away from you. It's just an incredibly intuitive interface built on top of some seriously complex analysis.
Okay, now for the final and maybe most crucial step. The AI has found a feeding frenzy. Great. But a little highlight on your phone screen is pretty useless when you're on a boat. The system has to bridge the gap between the digital world of pixels and the physical world of navigation. So just how reliable is this thing? Well, the goal was to hit over 80% recall. What that means is the AI spots at least 8 out of every 10 flocks that a human observer can. That's the level of performance you need for this to be a genuinely tactical tool and not just a toy.
And the workflow for the user, it's beautifully simple. You just scan the horizon, you get an alert, you tap the screen to confirm the target, and that locks in the compass heading. Then one final tap, and boom, it sends a waypoint directly to your boat's GPS. You go from detection to navigation in literally just a few seconds. So what's the magic behind this? It's actually some really clever math happening right on the device. The app takes your phone's precise compass heading at the exact moment you tap. It combines that with an estimated range to the target, and then it just uses some basic trigonometry to calculate a real-world GPS coordinate. Simple, but so effective. Now look, a system this advanced doesn't just happen by accident. So to wrap things up, let's pull back the curtain a little bit and look at the methodical, step-by-step blueprint that actually brought this whole idea to life. The whole development process was just incredibly methodical. They started with a simple prototype, just to see if it could work. Then came the really hard part, collecting tons of footage and tuning the AI. After that, they built the GPS module. And most importantly, they tested it like crazy out on the open water to make sure it actually worked in the real world before the final launch. It's really a perfect example of structured innovation. And ultimately, that was the goal all along, to create a true tactical system, something that replaces guesswork and plain old luck with hard data and precision, empowering fishermen to just work smarter when they're out on the water. It really leaves you with a fascinating question, though. I mean, this app basically gives our phones a form of superhuman sight, right? It's trained to spot clues that we would just easily miss. So it really makes you wonder, what other invisible clues, what other patterns are out there in our world, just waiting for the right AI to come along and find them?